Hi, lovely people. Welcome to Zopplady. Welcome to my channel once again. So I am here again with David, and today's topic is about interracial marriage, the pros and cons. So now we'll go straight to David to tell us who his wife is. Is it from Taiwan, from Chinese, from Africa, or from Europe? So let's hear David say everything himself. So, David.
Yes, thank you for having me back again.
Yeah.
Interesting topic. Well, I must say, interracial marriage was something that I never really thought that would happen.
Oh, so your wife is not a Taiwanese?
Actually, I never really thought about getting married to start with. However,
Yeah.
I met my lovely wife a few years back, and one thing led to another. You know what they say, when you meet the right person, you know. So yes, so I'm currently still married happily to a German woman.
Ooh.
Yes, so I somehow fall into the whole interracial marriage
Okay.
category.
Yeah.
It's quite simple. You meet each other under circumstances and you realize, yes, there are differences, but you can overcome that.
Okay.
So we decided to give it a try, and then the first kid came,
Ooh.
and then the second kid came.
Wow.
So we now 4 family members in
Wow.
total, and we've been married now for 5 years.
Wow.
And with 2 beautiful children.
Wow.
So that's where
Is
we
the
are
third,
at the moment.
fourth, fifth coming, or you're settling just on 2?
Having small kids, as you know, is a very challenging day to day. You know, but it's something that we might consider. But both of us are in our 40s now, so it might be, you know, the human anatomy just doesn't really allow you to have too much options when you're at this age. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. I must say, I know the kids, they are so beautiful, really lovely. And you can imagine the mix between a German and an Asian man, an Asian African man. They're so beautiful. I mean, just have wild imagination about the kids. Yeah, so since both of you are not from South Africa, where did you get married? Was it in Germany, South Africa,
No,
or
we
Thailand?
actually got married in South Africa.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting process because I was also a foreigner.
Okay.
Despite the fact that I came at the age of 14, I was requested to obtain a status of being single in Taiwan.
Ooh.
So I had to fly back, obtain that certificate, and then come back here. My wife had to do the same because she was actually born in Zimbabwe.
Okay, so she had to go to Zimbabwe.
So she had to get, luckily she was naturalized in South Africa when she was quite young. So she can get her status in South Africa. So that made our marriage a little bit more challenging than the normal, just 2 South Africans marrying each other. Yeah. And the process was actually quite daunting, I'm not gonna lie. What should have been just go and get registered turned out to be a 3-week trip overseas. Coming back, you have to go to the right Home Affairs. You can't just go to anybody else because of the foreigner status. And it was quite a process. But if you're interested, we can always discuss a little bit later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe we have to dedicate a new segment for that. The process to marry in South Africa as a foreigner.
Yes.
Yeah. So what are some of the challenges? I'll start with challenges because normally we want to hear bad news before we hear good news. So what are some of the challenges that you have gone through in terms of this interracial marriage? Is it something you will recommend?
So first of all, we didn't quite see it as interracial because we were both very South African. Right?
Yeah.
That's just to get it out there. Second of all, obviously she came from a more German background, South African German, and I'm more from a Taiwanese-South African background.
Yeah.
So there is a commonality, which is being South African.
Denominator.
Right, exactly. So the common denominator was being South African, right?
Okay.
But having said that, it's still very much a fusion of German, South African, as well as Taiwanese. The challenges were expectation.
Okay.
So even though I grew up in South Africa, there are certain ideas that were installed in me when I was young. You know, you look for a certain character or traits in a woman that you can associate with. For her, for my wife, it's the same thing. You know, they're thinking of how a German man should be, right? But we very quickly got into the debate of the cultural differences, right? Because you have to accept that you are from two different cultures. The key, though, however, is what can you accept, what can you tolerate, and also what can you kind of emphasize the differences. Not necessarily having a debate about it, but you got to understand that there are differences. So it's a learning curve, make no mistake, and it's also very eye-opening, because what you take for granted within your culture is totally different from others. For example, you know, for the Asians to use chopsticks for anything and everything is I eat spaghetti with chopsticks.
Oh.
Even now, I still do. You can ask my wife.
Wow.
And you know, for her, everything is knife and fork.
Yeah.
So those are the things that you kind of just have to look at it and say, right, out of 10, how much does it really bug you?
Yeah.
You know, another thing is like, say, slurping when you eat. In our culture, is totally acceptable because we like our food hot, and when it's hot, you gotta go.
Yes.
But in the European etiquette, it's considered impolite, right? Barbaric sometimes.
Yeah.
So you know, there is that difference in culture. So I wouldn't really call them the cons, but rather than the differences for each culture. But once again, you learn about the culture, you understand why they hold certain etiquettes, why they hold certain value on certain cultural differences.
Yeah.
And once you understand that, it's easy to overcome.
Yeah.
Now, another challenge which I find between interracial is your offspring. Now, in the beginning, we never really thought about it, but when the kids started coming, we thought, okay, now we're dealing with the real mix issue here, you know. So they're gonna look half white, half Chinese.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, they will never be considered white. They will always be considered Chinese.
Okay.
Because it's the same operation. Your kids will be considered more African than European, even though they look half-half.
Yeah. I think when it comes to in Ghana, they will look at them more like white.
You see, but
So
then in the white community,
they
will
are
be
more
considered
black. Yeah.
So where do you actually draw the line when it comes to the mixed kids?
Yeah.
So with this in mind, we were very concerned when the kids started to get to the age where they need to go to school. Would they be bullied because of the interracial? Exactly. Yeah. And funny enough, we chose and we were very concerned the first couple of days, thinking that they're going to be bullied or cast out and then we arrived at the kindergarten, the creche at the time, and our worries were unfounded because they were not mixed enough. They were not special enough in the ways of interracial offspring. Look, I mean, my kids are very Asian looking, but you can see the European influence. And then you get there, it's everybody is everybody else.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think it's just, you know, it really and truly defines the Rainbow Nation that we always talk about. So yeah, that I think in the beginning it was a con, but now it's actually, it makes no difference anymore.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
But coming to, or jumping the subject now, going to the whole pros of intermarriage, interracial marriage, is that you know you're special.
Yeah.
You know there are people that just don't understand. You know, you bring in your flavor. My wife will bring in her flavor and I'll bring in my flavor. And then you have a fusion.
Yeah.
For those who have never been involved interracially, they will never understand. You see. So that to me is a huge pro. Yeah. Another thing is you strengthen each other that way. Because you support each other, you understand the shortcomings, therefore you try your best to overcome that before it gets out of hand. So that supports and that problem solving becomes second nature. And to me that is a huge pro for this whole situation. And lastly but not least, you travel as a global citizen.
Yeah. Oh,
You know, you have got German passport, you have South African passport, you have Taiwanese passport.
Yeah.
What more can you ask
That's
for?
well.
I mean, you just short of being 007. You have got
Yeah.
passports to the world, you know.
Yeah. That's true.
So that, in terms of politics and you
Yeah.
know, diplomacy and all
Yeah.
of that, that's a big plus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it also expands your network.
Absolutely.
You know.
You're not limited.
To.
You're not limited to just your
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah.
And by marrying someone of different color, different language, different nationality, it's a key that's not necessarily Pandora. I wouldn't go that far, but it definitely opens up another safe which you would never otherwise have the chance to.
Exactly. Really. Yes. So just listening to you, I want to just pick some few questions from your submission.
Yes.
One would be the differences. Did you know the differences before you got married?
I think when you first fall in love, you know, anything is possible, and you don't really see it as a challenge. But a few months into it, then you start realizing there are differences. So no, we didn't go into this relationship thinking that there would be problems. Obviously, especially you know when you are the first few months that you're in love.
Yeah.
You can conquer the world.
Yeah.
You can do anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, the reality check comes in pretty quickly after you've met the parents for the first time. Again, it's expectation.
Yes, yeah.
You know, maybe they were looking for someone that's blonde hair, blue eyes, dark, I don't know, tall and handsome. I don't know. But you know, from a German perspective, I'm not so sure what is normal expectation. But even my wife confessed to me and said that she was never really expecting an Asian boyfriend.
Oh.
But we hit it off, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is history. Yeah, okay. Another question would be, how did you embrace these differences?
Well, I think the number one thing, again, it's about opening up your window of opportunity, right? That's one thing. And when I don't mean that in a financial sense or political sense or whatever. It's just when you are exposed to a certain culture, you don't always have a chance to go deep into it. But now you are engaged with this person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, you have to. So you start understanding the German side of things, you know, and she's starting to understand the Taiwanese side of things. And when you take each other to the events, you know, the different cultural events or with different group of people, then you start realizing there is more to it. The exposure is just incredible. And then you learn, you know, you learn the best and you also learn the worst. So yeah, then you kind of understand, like your mind needs to be exposed to these kind of things.
Okay, so can you give us an example of the worst and the best? Does it come handy? If it doesn't come handy, then it's okay.
Well, you know, everybody says that the Germans are hardworking.
Yeah. The German machine, the German efficiency.
German machine. Yeah. they like to you know get to the best part of everything, right? And what people don't quite understand is they are actually very humorous people. They're very funny people in that regard, even though they are by the book, but there's always between the lines.
Yeah.
So once you break that ice, then you realize that, you know, they are just as funny as anyone else.
Yeah.
And they are just naughty as
like
everybody
anyone
else.
Exactly.
So they're not always by the book.
Yeah.
You see.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that which I find is quite a revelation.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say there was anything that bad. But there are certain ways when they are in that moment, when they are stubborn about certain things, you wish you can just go, you know, and just forget about it. So that is something that sometimes I find a bit challenging.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And also just want to find out, you remember in our first conversation, our first video, you did mention that being an Asian man in South Africa, you get stared at.
Yes.
And then now that you even have a German wife in South Africa, I mean, South Africa is your common denominator.
Yes.
Now, how do you deal with being stared at as couples? Mixed race couples?
Yes. In the beginning, it did bother us a little bit
Yeah.
because we will go to some remote town in South Africa and just the fact that we're both walking together, holding hands, you still get that stare. But I don't know if that will be a stare of discrimination, or maybe it's the stare
of admiration.
Admiration, exactly. So,
Yeah.
so again, it comes down to our own mindset. Especially now when we have kids, after we had kids, when the kids are walking in front of us, I see a lot of lovely smiles.
Yeah.
It's not just about the interracial relationship anymore. It's about a beautiful family that are enjoying life and really appreciating each other. I'll give you an example. We went to Cape Town when we were dating, and we went to a place called Somerset West. And that place is known to be a retirees' heaven, paradise. So when we walked through the mall, we saw a lot of, frowns and stares, and just my wife and I. Well, at the time we were still dating. But we went back again a few years later with kids, and all of a sudden those fronts were opened up. And it's
nice.
almost as if, so they made it,
yeah.
So you also get that kind of affirmation in a way.
Yeah. Oh.
So nowadays we actually quite chuffed at the fact that we are interracial and we have got, mixed children. So again, it's a mindset. In the beginning I was also a bit uncomfortable. But nowadays, I just see it as an advantage, really. Like I'm different from others. I'm already different.
Exactly.
And now I'm even more different.
Yeah.
So I don't see it as a challenge anymore.
That's really nice to hear. And then speaking about family, I can see how, immediately you talk about your kids and your wife, I see that broad smile on your face. Now tell me about fatherhood, the difficulties that comes with the pleasantries that comes with it. How is it?
I must admit, like I said, I never thought about being married and have family, not even have kids. But it came after my wife fell pregnant.
No.
That's when you realize there's something brewing in that tummy of hers. And then when you hear that first heartbeats, and then you feel that first kick, in the third trimester, that's when it started to sink in. So I think you also give yourself a little bit of time. It's like you dream about having something, and then eventually it's in your hand. You kind of have to pinch yourself, and is it real? So I think the fatherhood started brewing when my wife went into the second trimester. And then you start seeing the toes, the limbs that started developing and all of that. So well, first of all, being a husband was already a challenge for me. And then very soon after, I became a father. So I didn't really have time to adjust.
To enjoy your husbandhood.
That's the thing, So how do I embrace it? I don't know if I'm embracing it. I think I don't see it as a negative. I don't really see it as something that I shouldn't have done in the first place. Things it's like a domino effect. You kind of just fall into place. Or there are times when I'm really annoyed and irritated, and in the dark side of me want out of this hole. But then they come and then they give you a hug and then give you a kiss on the cheek, and you're like, okay, whatever. So far so good.
So far so good. And I know a lot of fathers, a lot of mothers can relate with his experience. And we coming, time really flies so quickly. And I think conversation with David is so nice that I think there should be another part 3, right? So we'll end our conversation here. But before we end, I just want him to just give out a short message to people who look at interracial couples with different eyes, whether with joy or with hate, anything at all. Would you want to say anything about being in interracial relationship, marriage, to the general public?
I think there's a misconception that people think if you're interracial is because of some ulterior motive. But at the end of the day, you just fall in love with that person. And that person can be any color, they can speak any language, they can look in all sorts of ways different to each other. And I think one must just focus on the actual relationship. Cross out the interracial part. Because we are the same after all.
Thank you.
Once you've gone beyond the differences,
Thank you.
yeah, embrace it. If you ever get a chance to meet someone from a different side of the world, different culture, put that aside.
Yeah.
Enjoy the relationship, because that's what fundamentally who we are and what we are.
Yeah.
So yeah, take it easy, live a happy life,
Yeah.
think positive.
Yeah.
If you ever see one, give them a thumbs up,
Yes.
you know, and don't beat them down just because you don't have that experience
Yeah,
yet.
exactly.
Yeah.
On that, having that positive mind, on that note, I'd like to say a big thank you for watching. And as always, don't forget to tell a friend, to tell a friend, to tell a friend about who? Zopplady. See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.